Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. So, what does open world mean to you? Right? Like, what does an open world look like or sound like to you? Like, what's the definition of an open world game? And I feel like it's a subjective thing on some level, but I think like for me, and I've heard different things from different people, but for me, it is that idea that that game has a world that's like it's expansive. You can go from like city to city, town to town, or whatever the case may be for that particular game. But the idea is that you can explore, right? You can play around with it a bit. Um, and so that's a very generic definition. And I think that's how it should be. It should be open to a degree because I feel like in the last decade or so, like that definition has become rigid, even if people don't necessarily talk about it that way. There's certain expectations that come into play when you say open world. And I think like there's been some series where they've touted some, recent entry in the franchises, their first foray into open world games. It's like, no, it isn't. So I wanted to talk about all that and just, in general hear from other people. So my big thing is like if you talk to a lot of people today, right? They may say a different thing or have a different definition of an open world game than let's say 25 years ago. Expectations change and it's not like something that's explicit. You know what I mean? Like it is, but it isn't, right? It's appropriately open. But let's take a lot of RPGs from back in the day, right? Like if you talk to people 25 years ago, some people might say that those are some open world games, right? But for some other people, they might think of things in more modern times. Um, you know what I mean? Like for a lot of games these days, they might say like, oh, well, they have a bunch of environments to explore, and there's like a skill tree and a task list, fast travel system, things along those lines, like a lot of side quests, and the idea of being able to explore, going back to that initial definition. So it's like it's the same, but kind of different because of the expectations, right? But I'd argue that some of the things that you hear that have like an explicit name now popped up before. Like take Pokemon for instance, if we start with that franchise. Like Pokemon Legends Arceus is an awesome game, right? Like I enjoyed it. But it was touted as the first open world Pokemon game. And on top of that, there have been a lot of people over time who will be like, oh, I want an open world Pokemon game or I want a truly open world Pokemon game. And I'd argue Pokemon, like a lot of RPGs in that same sort of family or like similar, it's open world by default. Like you're going through these different like cities and towns, you're exploring different elements of that world and that environment. And even if for some people they feel like certain parts of that are linear, you can still explore, right? And the fact that you can go back having had more experience and have like different items and discover new parts of that world, I feel like that helps with that idea that it's open world. As like that, those experiences are what you make it, because you can go and you can play things rather linearly, like with a Pokemon game, but like you could also explore, take your time, have some fun. But for some people, they wouldn't consider those older games open world, which is like crazy to me because it's like, well, how are they not? Um, you know, the world is open for you to play it, and something like Pokemon, like Legends Arceus. Again, it's a great game, and it looks different and feels different in some ways from those older Pokemon games. And I'd argue it has some of the trappings with modern open world games or people or games that people count as open world. But it's just like the things have been around for a while. Like take the fast travel system for instance. Just like like in Pokemon from the get go, you had Fly. That's fast travel. Like, you know what I mean? And like you didn't necessarily have things outlined as far as like quests and side quests and have like a task list and all that stuff, but it was really there. And so it's like, don't get me wrong, Pokemon Legend Arceus again is a great game. It has a lot, and it makes some of those things in earlier Pokemon titles very explicit, and it adds some of the things that like I enjoy. But like, it's not the only big thing, right? It's just that when I think of like modern open world games, they have certain things from older games just spelled out, right? Like because you have the fast travel, you have task list, skill trees, crafting elements, things along those lines. But like those have been in gaming for quite some time now. Maybe not all in the same sort of game, but like they've been around. And then there are other like series that have made that claim, like, oh well, this particular entry is open world as opposed to some other ones. A big one for me is like Star Wars because it's like crazy. Like Star Wars Outlaws was touted as the first like open world Star Wars game. Now I asked how so because like the first. It feels loaded for Star Wars because like the best two examples for me are like KOTOR and KOTOR 2, like Knights of the Old Republic. Like how there was games not open world. Like you're literally going to several worlds with expansive areas and doing like a bunch of things in all those cases. Like before you were used to calling, this game open world and that game open world, like they were absolutely in that category, whether someone considers them to be that case or not. Because again, like you're literally going to multiple worlds and exploring and doing tasks and things along those lines. You don't really get more open world than that level of exploration to me. Like you can expand upon it, you can increase the scale and scope, but it does not disqualify those other games from being part of that, right? And then like as far as games that don't really like fit that typical well, sorry, I was gonna say RPGs, but we kind of got away from that. Because right, like a game does not have to be an RPG to be an open world, but like I'm sorry, I'm blending some thoughts. What I was gonna say though is like there are other larger franchises though that have made that same claim. So like with Dragon Ball, like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is touted as that that big large open world Dragon Ball Z game, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's the first. And I think it was presented that way, and the idea is like, well, no, there are some games, some Dragon Ball like games that are open world. Even when you look at some of the ones that are just straight up fighters, like the whole RPG elements and open world elements, like in their story mode. So it's like that's not foreign territory for a Dragon Ball game. I'd argue that Dragon Ball Z like Kakarot does it really well. It expands upon some things, it refines some things in terms of fighting, in terms of the environment, how things are generally presented. But it's not the first like Dragon Ball open world game. And another big one and that comes to me is like Metal Gear Solid 5, once upon a time when that was getting marketed. It was supposed to be like the first open world Metal Gear game. It's like, excuse you? Like Metal Gear Solid 3, thank you very much. And honestly, Metal Gear Solid 4 too. Like I feel like those definitely count. Like what would disqualify them from being open world? Like Metal Gear Solid 3, for instance, is a huge environment where you're literally outside and you're going to different environments and you're exploring, and creativity is heavily encouraged. Like you can explore the crap out of that game. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can just do so many different things. And with Metal Gear Solid 4, it's the same. Like you can go to different locations and like, explore that world and figure out different things about it too. Um, it's just like Metal Gear Solid 3 just stands out to me because like if you're gonna say like something was the first Metal Gear game to go open world, I'd say it would be 3, not 5. You know what I'm saying? And also a big thing with open world games is like some people will say, "Oh, well, this is open world and that's open world because it has like um, these huge environments." But it's like some of those games so don't have anything to do in those environments, and it feels very barren. So it's like, okay, have an open world and whatnot, but like if it's barren, what's the point? And just like having it on that larger scale doesn't mean anything that came before it wasn't open world. So that's my big thing, right? Because I've seen like a lot of companies come forth and say that oh well, they're entering their first open world game, and it's like at the end of the day, it's about semantics and marketing. But I argue like open world games have been around for a while based on the way that I see them, um, and I wanted to put that out there. I was thinking about that lately, and I've thought about that in the past. So it's like I wanted to share that. With that in mind, I'll see you in the future. Please feel free to share your thoughts on anything I said here, or your opinions on open world games in general.